Today's episode of the Ramp It Up podcast contains explicit language and may not be suitable for all audiences. Listener's discretion is advised. Ladies and gentlemen, you are listening to the Ramp It Up podcast with your host, Ronel Sinuis.
Are you ready to ramp it up?
Ramp it up, ew!
Hey, yo, ramp it up, B.
Girl, ramp it up! Ramp it up!
The Ramp It Up podcast.
Hey, you need to ramp it up.
Ramp it up.
And we are back with another episode of the Ramp It Up podcast. I'm your host and your favorite Zoe on Wheels, Ronel. The month of May. May is here, and for all my Haitians, you know that means it is Haitian Heritage Month. Flag Day is coming up on May 18th, so I gotta say a bonjour, bonsoir, sakap fet to all my Haitians out there, to all the Zoes out here in South Florida, in Haiti, of course, in New York, Boston, wherever you guys may be. Shout out to all my Haitians celebrating Haitian Heritage Month. Also, this coming weekend is Mother's Day, so I have to say another shout out to all the moms out there, the mothers, the mother figures, the godmothers, the aunts, all of the women who step into that position of being a mom. Shout out to all of you guys. We appreciate you. We love you. And in fact, that's what we're talking about today on today's episode. We are talking about moms. And I have a friend of mine from the support group I'm a part of, the Miami South Spinal Cord Injury Support Group. She goes by the name of Tatiana Ribeiro. She's actually the support group's treasurer. And she's also a wheelchair mom. She has a spinal cord injury. She's a para. But besides that, she's a mom. And she's an amazing mom at that. We have a great conversation. Just talk about her experience, her spinal cord injury, and being a two-time mom. She has a 14-year-old and a 2.5-year-old, but you'll hear all about that in today's episode. There was more we wanted to talk about, but we ran out of time. She had to take care of the kids, but we'll definitely have her on another episode. What are you guys getting for your moms? Any gift ideas? Feel free to share them. Email us here at the podcast, rampituppodcast@gmail.com. You can also hit us up on our Instagram page. It's ramp.it.up.podcast. Don't forget, we're on Facebook. Like and follow us, guys. It is the Ramp It Up podcast on our Facebook page. And of course, we're on all the major podcast platforms, also on YouTube. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, iHeart, Spotify, you name it, we're on there. Just search the Ramp It Up podcast. We want to know what you guys think. So review, 5 stars, hopefully. Comment, let us know what you think about the podcast. We want to know. We want your feedback. Again, moms, shout out to all of you guys. Y'all are amazing. And for those of you guys who don't know, there's actually Haitian Mother's Day at the end of the month. So I guess American Mother's Day is the first Sunday of the month of May, and Haitian Mother's Day is the last. So shout out to all the moms, and we're going to just jump straight into the conversation with Tatiana. On today's episode of the Ramp It Up podcast, I'm joined by a special guest by the name of Tatiana Ribeiro. She is a board member, treasurer actually, of the Miami chapter of the Spinal Cord Injury Support Group, and an overall dope person. And I joined her, I asked her to join me on the podcast this week, although I've been working on it for a while, but she's busy. She's super busy. I get it. She's an amazing person, a good peer mentor, and of course, an amazing mom. Since we're talking about Mother's Day, I wanted her to join me on the podcast. So Tati, say hello to the people.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me. I am here. I finally made it.
It's been a while. I get it. The pandemic has been busy and just dealing with the new baby. So I know it's been a lot, but thank you so much for setting time aside for me and our listeners for today.
I'm so glad to be able to and be here. So, well, um, I am from Brazil. Um, I have two kids. I have a spinal cord injury. Well, let's start from the beginning. Um, I was born in Rio, but grew up an hour from São Paulo in a small city, which it's not so small, like anymore. Um, and I came to the U.S. for the first time when I was 13 years old. I was here for 6 months. I went back to Brazil. And then um, in 2 years and a half, like 3 years, I had a car accident, where I became paraplegic. And when I was, like after my accident, I was told the whole time that I was to 12, complete, and this and that. So, 4 months, about 4 months, 4 months and something after my injury, I came to the US. Um, to me, everything was new. Like, I decided to start in a new place. Like, my brother here, his roommate was actually also had a spinal cord injury. So it
Wait, who
was
was his roommate?
Roma. You know Roma, a Brazilian guy.
Oh, okay, yeah, I met him.
Yeah. So he was, well, my brother was friends with him before Roma's accident. So he knew him before. And when I had my accident, he was actually his roommate. And Roma said, "Oh, just bring your sister. It's going to be a lot better but for her." So, like I just decided to start everything new.
Oh
I,
wow.
once I got here, the doctor started doing like the test with me. And he was like, "Oh, you're not a T12, you're a T2." And then was how I could explain to my brother everything that I could not do. That my brother would look at Roma and say, "Look, he's a T12 and he's able to do this and that and the other," and I couldn't. And so I'm a partially T2 and T5, and T12 is complete.
Okay, yeah. So I'm being that I'm cervical level. I don't know too much about the T's and the L's. So what would you say is the difference?
Well, basically, I guess that what also like it is if I was a complete T2, like everybody's like, "Oh, a T2, like that I have such a like good hand movements and arms and I guess that it would have affected somehow some of the muscles. I don't know exactly which ones in my arms, but it wouldn't you know be as good as is. It's just that I don't have any trunk at all. I can cough.
Okay.
I have no stomach muscles or anything. So that it's not someone that is a T12, it's definitely able to do that. Like that's the huge difference. Like I would always, not having stomach muscles, like I would be able, I could fall out of my chair a lot easier than, like to 12, or even to transfer, I don't have the muscles like to just shift my body to the side. It's just everything is done through your arms. So it's a huge difference, but I mean, you do it anyhow. You learn. I mean, like it's funny, like talking about this now because I just went through surgery again in December 2019. My rods had failed, and now I'm back to that point. Like I'm starting over.
Okay.
I'm starting over. Like, I mean, I just said, "Oh, okay, like I don't have like how to shift my body to the side." Like now I'm relearning everything because I have lost some movements from how I was after my injury to this last surgery.
So now I want to talk. I want to get to that in a second. But I wanted to talk a bit about Brazil. How
Brazil is awesome. If you have money and if you want to go have fun, but
well?
that's
Okay, I know where I'm going next year for my birthday. But like, would you say it's wheelchair friendly or accessible or?
not for the most part, and but I mean it's doable. You definitely can do it. It's just that it's not gonna be easy very, like, um, you have to adapt. You have to be able to adapt as much as you can. It's, I mean, a lot of places. I mean, there are places that are very accessible, but I mean, it's just that there will be like limitations. Like it's awesome. Um, Depending on the city, depends how you plan and where you want to go, and just adapt. I guess that's
What
all
would
I
you
got.
say, at least in your experience or what you've heard, is the cultural perception of someone who has a disability or an injury?
Look, in Brazil, people will pump you up in the line. Like you won't wait on a line because you have a disability, right? But at the same time, like everybody wants has the Brazilian way, so they will get around. It's hard to explain. Like, I mean, they will get you in front at a line for something, but it doesn't mean that they will give you all the accessibility to things, like that you actually need.
Okay.
I mean, it's they try to make it up. Like, I mean, everybody says like, oh, like everybody helps everyone in Brazil. Yes, they do, and they don't. So it's fine. Like, okay, people will come and help me, but sometimes a lot of people like they will. Sometimes they look at you, seeing more your disability of them, like who you are. And then once they start to know you, then everything is fine. But until you get to that point, it's kind of like, I mean, it's different. Here they won't let you go, ahead in line in the many places, but at least they will give you the tools that you can get and, like be independent and do things for yourself.
I'm comparing it to, I know, I guess the Haitian perspective. Although I was born and raised here in the States, I've spoken to other people about the perception of someone with a disability or injury in Haiti, and you're almost kind of like hidden in the background. Like, all right, we'll give you everything you need at home, but don't go out in public and stay home where it's safe. So I was trying to see if there was anything mirroring it in Brazil.
Yeah, well, in Brazil, we have a lot of more people with, like a spinal cord injury or other disabilities. We have like, we have a lot of people, but you don't see them. I mean, you see, like, I mean, you start to get to know people. If you know someone with a disability that knows someone else, and then, like if you're in a group of friends, if you're exposed to the person. But it's not like here that you're gonna go out and see, like, I mean, it's funny that I was just telling this story sometime, I mean, this past weekend to someone. Um, one of the times, like years and years ago, when I was in Brazil, I was like, I want to ride the bus. I want to ride the bus because the bus had this space for the wheelchair. Okay.
Okay.
But look, hear this. It's unbelievable. I sat on the bus stop and they stopped. And the guy was like, okay, so who's going to help you up? How come? Who is going to help me up? They didn't have a ramp. They had this space for the wheelchair.
But no way to get on the bus.
So it's, you know,
Someone didn't think that idea all the way through, but it was there.
yeah, I mean, yeah. So it's like, I mean, that was just like remarkable, like, is it even possible? I mean, if I wouldn't have lived the experience, I wouldn't have believed, if someone would tell me, I would not believe because how come? But then, like in the south part of the country, there is a city called Curitiba, which all the bus stops are right, like, I mean, raised up, so actually people can utilize the buses.
Oh, that's cool. So it's level
So
where the bus would be.
yeah, so but then that city, it's a hilly city, and it's like, okay, they have all of this, but I can just think about how would I push around the city, Like, I mean, yeah,
Like for me, since I have a power chair, it'd be a little easier. But you that has to use arms and get
yeah.
the ring,
The city has like great, accessibility tools, but it's just
the
hard.
landscape. So
Yeah, but people are kind. They try to help. They try to do it. I mean, going to Brazil, you need to find a way of how you're gonna pee because don't count on most restrooms. although they might be, accessible, but they're not. Then are you going to Brazil? You said, are you going?
No, I would love to. Like,
Okay. So, man, the most ridiculous thing ever in life. I don't even know why, and I would love to know why. In the airports, like the major airports, like Guarulhos, like it's major airport. In the handicapped restroom, the sink, it's like a triangle, but it's so small. It's like I don't understand why they did that. Maybe like it's like a foot, uh, and a foot wide and then a long. I mean, I don't know. It's like it's something so small that like your hands will not fit under the
to
sink.
wash.
But I don't understand. I mean, I question myself, like, why in the handicapped restroom you have something like that? So I don't know if they assume that, like you won't wash your hands or what.
So now let's talk a bit about your transition to the States. Like you were saying, your brother's roommate had a spinal cord injury, so there was someone that you could at least relate to and give you some advice. But I mean,
Yes.
young, you're coming to another country, a language that you might not be super fluent in.
No, I was not fluent at all. I didn't speak English at all when I came. Either Spanish. It was amazing to have him. Like right away he took me to the Miami project. The Miami project he used to be downstairs at the rehab building. By the time I arrived, I started doing, I study with them. To me, that was something that gave me a lot of, it was a huge push. It gave me energy. It gave me like, I wanted to go out and prove myself, like and do. It's like, okay, I want to say hope, but my hope was, it's not like, oh, to walk again, but it was just like, I mean, to be able to be independent and live a life that I could enjoy. Before I started with the project, I getting here, I went to the Mercy Hospital. I was their first inpatient spinal cord injury. Um, um, how do you call it, patient, and it was very, I wasn't able to go to the Jackson because of insurance
Yeah.
purposes, but it was very interesting. The therapists were great. They were like all, like willing to help me and everything, but let's just say that they didn't have like it wasn't like a Jackson that they can tell you what to do or how to do, like they didn't have much experience with my case. So we would have the restroom chair and this and that, and they would all be there to assist me. But they're like, okay, go ahead and do it. And then, no, you can try this, you can try that, which was nice. It was a learning process for all of us. But I can also, sometimes I also think that some of those, things set me behind a little bit once I left the hospital. But I did pick up very soon after, and that's my, my starting point.
How did
And
that differ from
Carolina.
how did that differ from your hospital stay or rehab in Brazil?
Oh, there was no rehab in Brazil for me. Most people, when you have access, something like that, not everybody is able to go. Actually, I am lucky enough that I had a good insurance in Brazil, and I would be able to go to a therapy place, but I didn't want to. I was going to be sent. Look, uh, just to have an idea, from São Paulo, I would be sent to Brasilia, to the capital of Brazil, to be able to do therapy.
Okay.
Because it's a center that would be considered like what Jackson is, that has, like a space just for people with spinal cord injuries. No, but most people, that's not a really like realistic thing for people that get injured in Brazil. Very, feel like are able to do so. But I didn't want to go because I wanted to come to the U.S.
Okay, so you've been at the Miami project for some months now, maybe a year. You're starting to be active. You're acclimating to be in the States. What was your career or education goals? Now that you're working on being independent, what were your next steps?
Look, one thing that I forgot to say is just so you can understand how in Brazil things are different. Um, I left the hospital in Brazil with two sores in my gluteus. Like they let me sit for 6 days in a row, and I just developed like on the left, on the right side, it healed pretty quickly, but on the precious sore on the left, I had for over a year and a
Yeah.
half after my injury. So when I got here and I started going to the project and doing all of this, I would do things and I would come back home and spend the whole day at home. So I had a little fistula that every day would close and the next day would open. The day would close and open. So um, that took a while to close. I would say close to 2 years. Once that happened, when I had my accident, I was still in high school. So here, when that healed, I just I started going to high school, night school, and then I decided that that was taking too long, and then I went and I finished with a GED, so I could, like just try to study something. Then I started going to college, and I didn't know what I want to do. I never knew what I wanted to do. That's the thing. I'm still like trying to find. Besides becoming a mom, I didn't know what I wanted to do. Not that I wanted to become a mom then, but then I started an associate's degree. I didn't have exactly, like what I was going to do. By then, I was 24, and uh, and then I ended up. I mean, in the first year of my degree, I ended up getting pregnant, and I worked full time and I went to school. Then I thought that life was just going to be totally normal afterwards. That I was going to go back to my full time job and go to school and take care of a child, and it did not go like that. So I dropped school for 3 or 4 years, and then I went back and I actually got an associate degree with doing medical billing and coding, but I never used.
Okay, now I know a few people that did the same thing with that medical coding degree, but let's rewind. During your time around Jackson or a Miami project, did they ever talk to you about having a baby, fertility, and all those things, or did you ask any questions? Because, like you said, you were still in high school, so puberty, you want to know about sex, you want to know about relationships. Now that you're injured, did anyone actually have these conversations?
I'm not gonna lie to you. Probably heard of something, but was never really like no. I mean, probably heard something, but it was not a topic really that I have asked or that I can recall. Of course, it was a huge topic for me when I had my accident. I wanted to know like how things would work. I know that I always knew that I probably would pee having intercourse because you can just hold your bladder, and then that women could get pregnant without having to go through a fertility because it's just nothing should change, like in your uh, ovaries, I guess.
Good stuff, yeah.
I One thing I did learn, in a hard way was that I didn't know that I could not take anti how birth control pills.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that I didn't know, and I thankfully I found out like very short after in a short time after I started taking because I went to Brazil. I just got my prescription. I started taking, and I had a doctor here, scheduled, and I went to my appointment. I got to my appointment and I was telling the doctor that I was taking the medication, and they're like, "Oh, you shouldn't be taking because of like the high risk of blood clots." And it's funny because I did started swelling, after. So, one thing first to say, women with spinal cord injury, because we don't have like movements, like, I mean, we're not able, or we shouldn't at all take blood clots, no,
Birth
blood
control pills.
pills because of blood clots.
I did not know that. Okay.
hmm And then they will say, some doctors will say, oh, you can have the injection. And then they will say, okay, go get the injection. And then, I mean, this was later in life, right? After my pill. He was like, oh, you can have an injection. And then I didn't take it in a day that the doctor said that I could. And like 2 days later, someone called me from his office, like, no, no, don't go get it, not even the injection. So, I mean, it's, maybe some women do, but it's not something that you should do.
Okay, so now you're pregnant. Like, how did that go? How did no, not how did it happen, of course, but how did you take the news, and what was, I guess, if any?
Oh, to me, the news was really hard for me. I found out, that I was pregnant in a joke.
Really?
Yes, yes. I had a friend that had to do a test, like she was like, oh, I need to do a test, I'm late, this and that. I wasn't late. So I went to the thing and I got the one for her, and I'm like, oh, it comes with two, let me do one. And the freaking thing came positive. So I'm
No,
like,
you're kidding.
I went back and I got 5 tests in the same day, and I kept just doing the test because I couldn't believe, that was the case. So yeah, well, the thing is, I was not with the father of my child. We were just whatever, and didn't know how to break the news. He was friends with my brother. I just felt like, oh, they're gonna kill each other. My brother's gonna lose his job, and blah blah blah. So I mean, I wanted to have the baby. I was going to have the baby. I just couldn't say who the father was. Oh my god.
That's
Yeah.
hilarious.
Yeah, but then like finding out, like, no, at that point in my life, I was, like, I had a good job. I was, going to school. I, like, I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I wasn't, like, in a bad place. I was in a good place. I was totally independent. I had my apartment. I had my thing going, and I was going to have the baby. I worked until I was 7 months pregnant, 7 to 8 months. And then I decided that I was like pushing myself too much, like, because I didn't drive. So I would push the train to this and that, and I wasn't feeling good. So I decided to stay home. It was a good thing because Mateo was born from 34 weeks. I just started, labor. But again, the doctor that I had when during my pregnancy, the doctor didn't have an experience with a spinal cord. So he never gave me the option of having a natural delivery. It was always ruled since the beginning that it was going to be a C-section.
Wow. Okay, so it was just, first of all, not having the experience, but just not looking into it. So it's just like, this is what you're gonna do.
Yeah, basically. No, well, and then the worst part with that was that he wanted to put me to sleep. He wanted me to go under general anesthesia to have the baby because he didn't know what could happen. And that I said that I didn't want to. I went to in the hospital looking for the anesthesiologist, trying to find a way because I was not, that was not an option for me to not see my son at first. So um, we were able to do that, thankfully. But Mateo was, born a little ahead of time.
Wow. So
I mean, one thing that I would say, with during my pregnancy, I had 2 UTIs. One when it was 4 months, 4 to 5 months, and then the other one was when Mateo was born. What happened is, as my bladder was contracting because of the UTI, I was having, that started stimulating my uterus, and I started dilating. So, yeah, Mateo was going to be born. I went to the hospital. I was just looking at my belly during that day, and my belly was making funny things and getting hard and soft and hard. And I did not have any pain, so it was hard, to tell. I just went because I didn't know what else. So I went to the hospital, and all of these women were there, in pain and this and that. And the guy told me, I remember, "Are you sure you're supposed to be here, Mama?" Because I looked fine. I was just like, "Oh, my belly's doing this," but I'm
Yeah, because of the sensation, you can't feel it.
yeah. And then the doctor did the touch thing. Is like, "Oh, Mama, you're 3 centimeters. Like you're gonna have your baby." And I'm like,
Wow.
I know when she said that it was 3 centimeters, I remember. Oh, does that go back? And she's like, "Yeah, after you have your baby." I'm like, okay, cool. So then they had to rush with the C-section because I didn't have the option to do naturally, but probably I could because my body was doing its thing.
So it was naturally doing what it's supposed to do. Unfortunately, there were complications with having UTIs, but because of the doctor's lack of experience or knowledge, they were just like
Correct. Mm-hmm.
a C-section.
Yeah, and then second pregnancy with Manuela, I had a different doctor, which was Dr. Yassine, and he has retired now, but he was at Jackson in ME and UM, and he had a lot of experience with women with spinal cord. So I had like the two totally like different, experiences. One that had no knowledge, and the other one that had too much knowledge, and everything was normal.
And
I
I'll say this about the support group. You guys have always said make sure, and Dr. Dalal and everyone else at Jackson, like to find the doctors that have the SCI experience because it makes a whole world of a difference. I know I'm trying to find a new urologist because my current urologist is like, well, yeah, we'll just try stuff. I'm like, well, no, I don't want to just try stuff. Like, I want someone that has an informed experience that's dealt with certain people, and it has nothing to do with his expertise as a urologist. It's just you're not in our area, and that can be dangerous, or it could be misleading or misinforming.
For sure, because sometimes things, it's just that our bodies, like tend to act in a way that it's, like it might make sense to go different routes. Like now that you're saying something about urology, I'm scheduled to go into surgery now on the 25th to get I don't even know the name of the surgery, but it's to be able to pivot my belly button because of the surgery that I had with my back. It made it very difficult for me to use the restroom now. I have to be laying down, otherwise I can't.
The suprapubic
So,
catheter, or
huh?
to get the suprapubic catheter?
No, it's not a super pubic. Yeah, if you want to, you can Google. It's a Mani something. It's a
Okay.
surgery where you pee by your belly button. You catheterize by your belly button.
Okay, so it's similar because you're inserting it through that area, but it's not remaining there, is what you're saying.
No, it's not remaining there. You insert it there, but then the super pubic, like you have to change from time to time.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That one you don't. It's just
okay.
one thing, that it's there. So I'm looking into it, and I asking people. I found a doctor that does it, and he like right away, oh, it's spinal cord injury, okay, like said everything for me to go ahead and do it. And I went to see another doctor, and the other doctor was like, "Oh, are you sure that you want to do this? This is not so good because of this and that and the other." And then he told me, that I had to see a neurologist, which I'm gonna actually see tomorrow. If I like it, then I'll give it to you because he's a and I was referred by well-known doctor that deals with spinal cord.
Okay, appreciate it.
Yeah, so I'm going tomorrow to find out, the pros and cons, and see if I'm gonna go with this surgery or not. But the first doctor that does this surgery that I saw doesn't really deal with people with spinal cord. He just, like says that it's a yes. So that's the difference, right? The other doctor was like, "Oh, you better see someone that knows more about your condition and this type of surgery. So if you speak to this person first, maybe you have a different perceptive." Um,
Now, so Mateo came in C-section. Being a new mom by itself is already kind of scary. It's not the easiest thing in the world. You're a single mom. Would you say being a wheelchair user complicated it? And how would you say those first couple months to years went?
I Wow. So when Mateo was born, look, he was, as I said, he came a little bit premature. He came home. I came home without Mateo. Mateo was in the hospital in NICU for 19 days. I was in the hospital for 7 days. That said, like it was a hard experience. Once he left the hospital with a monitor. That I had to use something like around his belly to make sure that everything was fine.
Mm-hmm.
And so at my job, I told them that I wasn't going to go back to work until he, would be out of that. What ended up happening is I never went back to work. I decided to stay home with him. I had some savings, and I was thankfully like fortunate to do that. When Mateo was a year and a half, I ended up like me and his dad, we decided to try to, build a family. Um, it was hard when I left, but it was awesome. It was so great. I mean, it was something that I wanted so badly. Like I loved him so much that I didn't care about anything else. Um, like, I mean, Mateo, like the first days, like to give him a bath was a little difficult. And then, like I got around with it and everything was fine until he was 11, no, 10 months old. That then got very difficult for me to be able to bathe him by myself because he was heavy and very slippery with soap. Once I almost dropped the child, and then I was like, "Oh no, you know what? I think I need help now." And, like I mean, I used to clean the floor like crazy because I was like, "Oh, my wheelchair is dirty and the floor," but I let him on the floor, and he started walking. Like he did everything, like at a time and normal. I don't know. It's really hard for to me, and to us, everything was so natural.
That's cool to hear because I listened to a few other podcasts and one or two of them have mothers who have spinal cord injuries and they talk about their experiences and they're like people assume it's going to be so much harder or so different or the kid's going to be missing out on so much, but they're like, no, we do regular mom stuff. You just find your way around whatever little challenges you might come across and you handle business.
Yeah, I mean, when they start growing up, like now that he's 14, I'm telling you, like, I mean, maybe like last year, the year before, I started like, okay, feeling like I'm missing out on some things with him, like, oh, okay, I want to go out and play sports. There's some things that I do and some things that I don't. Um, I mean, he has been like overstimulated. Like, I mean, he has done so much, like, I mean, I take him to museums, doing things. I mean, it's not that I ever sat home and he didn't do things, but there are other things that, okay, I couldn't do it. I mean, you give what you can and, and it is what it is, man. The bottom line is, I mean, becoming a teenager, it's hard for the child and for the adult, the parent, regardless of a disability or not.
Mm-hmm.
But I have told him, I know that you wanted your mom to walk and do this and this and this, and I can't, and I'm sorry, but this is not something I chose. I mean, I have gotten to that point because I have been stressed, but I think that is an age thing more than anything. It's not, that we can do certain things. It's just like we give so much more. Like, kids. One thing that I was told, someone told me, and I realized, and it's true. From what I see, is that for the most part, kids that have parents with disabilities, they're so much more independent. They tend to be. Um, and that's not a bad thing. That's a good thing. They're independent in a way, and then you give them much more other, in another way. It's uh, it's a crazy relationship, I guess.
So now, when he was younger, like now he's 14, but when he was younger, if you remember, or if it even happened, how did that conversation go when he realized you were a little different than some of the other moms?
Kids are very curious, so kids, around me. I was, uh, um, see, I don't know, like once I started, I don't know if I started the conversation with him, but the other kids would question, right? And then I would explain to other kids, I didn't wear the seatbelt, and that's why I'm on a wheelchair. I broke my back, and this and that. So I would explain to other kids, and I think that that's how he picked up, because for him was normal, and I always took him to, he had so many like friends, since the beginning. As I was very active, going to the park with him and have friends around. And once he started going to school, to preschool, I started like I one thing that I did, and I did on purpose. It was always being very connected to his school and to everything he did, because I didn't want kids to bully him, like to see him as different. So I would expose myself to the other kids to become something normal for them,
Okay.
he would be accepted. So yes, so once he started in kindergarten, I started, I was that PTA mom. Man, people thought that I worked at the school. Literally, like, people thought that I was an employee at the school. They gave me the key for the elevator of the school. So I was very active that way. Kids, they would see that as something normal, and I guess that it worked out. Whatever I did and whatever happened, like it went in a good way.
I think that's a dope way to do it because you are the norm for your kid. They see you every day, so you're what's normal for them, or whatever quote unquote normal means. You're what mom is, but because other people aren't exposed to it, they might not be comfortable. So exposing them to it and having those conversations, I think was a great way of doing it. I don't have kids, but I have nephews and nieces, and a few of them were like 1, 2, or 3 years old when I first got injured. So they only know me as in the wheelchair. And sometimes I'll show them pictures of before carrying them and stuff. And I remember she's 7 now. By the time I think she was like 4.5. And she looked at me. She was like, "So why don't you stand up and pick me up now? Like, I don't get it. Like, you were doing it in the picture. Do it now." And I was like, "Well, I got hurt before." And then, so she got quiet for a quick second and thought to herself, she was like, "Well, I fell yesterday and I hurt my knees. So did you fall and hurt your legs too?" And that, so it's just interesting seeing how they're trying to understand it and how they get over it. Because my nephew comes, he'll climb my chair and just sit on my lap, and it's just, "Hey, we out, like drive, like let's go look outside, let's ride around." And kids themselves are way more resilient and willing to adapt than, ironically, adults who make things a whole lot weirder.
Yeah, it was like being a part of this. The PTA thing was so funny because like kids would be in the line, in school, and I go through them, and they're basically, they're they were little, and then they started like almost like reaching to my side, and then like I would just get lost in between them, and then but they, like they really developed. Like everybody wanted to talk to me, everybody wanted to be my friend. It was so funny. It was very funny, like it was, really good. I had a really good time doing it, and but then I started working, and I, like went in a different direction, I guess.
So now, again, you're a two-time mom. So Manuela, I believe you were saying her name is?
Yes.
She's how old now?
Manuela is 2 and 8 months.
So she was born like right before pandemic.
Yes, she was 3 months old when it hit. No, 4.
I know quite a few pandemic moms. So they had their babies either right before or during. So how would you say that made interacting and raising her so far a little bit different?
But I mean, I feel like she missed out, but I missed out with her in so much, with so much. Like I mean, with because of the pandemic, because also my back. Like after Manuela, I found out that I had to go under surgery again to like extend the rods because and well, with Manuela, I mean, she and I guess that I'm older now, and she just starts screaming, and I'm like, whatever, let her do it. Like I don't want to deal with it anymore. So, and then Mateo says, but you let her do so much. And I'm like, Mateo, she was locked in an apartment for 2 years. Like, I mean, what can you say? Like, I mean, my apartment, like Mateo, when Mateo, I had my apartment, I never moved a thing. He never touched some things. He never, he knew the rules of the house. I never moved like feather in the
Mm-hmm.
apartment. But with Manuela, I had to block all the closets, all of the cabinets, the fridge. I had to put things everywhere so she wouldn't bring. And then and everybody's like, "Oh my God, your house is really chocolate." And I said, "Yeah, but the kids can go out. Like I can't do this and that. What else am I gonna do? Like, oh man, I bought a little slide and I put it in the living room because." So it is. It has been like a COVID babies. I think that it's somehow it's challenging. It's very challenging for the kids. I mean, like now she just started school. Like I just actually literally started taking her to preschool a month ago, and I feel like it was so necessary because she doesn't know how to share. She really doesn't know how to play. Like I
Yeah.
take her to the park now every single day. She plays with other kids. Don't get me wrong, but she doesn't. She's not bothered by playing by herself, or like she doesn't really, you know. So it's like now I'm trying to make something happen that it might not have been there before. Like I mean I don't know. It's not that. It's just a different. It's different.
And with the age difference between Mateo and Manuela, how is he taking on being a big brother and possibly
No,
some
I told him
responsibilities?
he is a big brother. He loves her to death. She loves him. It's their love, like it's amazing. And I guess it's because we're so closed in when she was born, and she was everything for him. Like I mean, we are super high risk. He couldn't go out and do anything. So like I mean, Manuela was like the light of the how like for him, and he is very loving. Mateo is awesome. He's an amazing big brother. It's amazing.
Dang, that's good to hear. That's very good. So,
Yeah.
and I want to make sure you're able, if you don't mind, just to share like some advice to some of the ladies who might be listening, or just
Well, another thing that I want to say, it's like with Manuela, I went through the IVF, so it was a totally
okay.
different pregnancy.
Oh, see, I didn't know that. Do you mind sharing a little bit about how that process went?
Yeah, well, I actually didn't do really much research on through the IVF. We had an IVF because of was like my fiance. He has a condition. He's also in a wheelchair. He doesn't have a spinal cord injury per se, but he has another condition,
Okay.
which is an X-linked. So we needed to have a boy, and I went through the eggs extraction, and in the end, I only had one embryo that, like, I mean, from 12 it became four, like, I mean, from 12 eggs, four were able to be fertilized. Only the four went forward, but only one stayed. And then one day they called me and they said, "Oh, we have a good news and a bad news. Which one will you want first?" And I said, "Oh, the good news. Oh, you have one egg. I mean, you have an embryo that it's good to do the insemination." I said, "Oh, nice. What's the bad news?" "Oh, it's a girl because we don't want her to be a carrier." But whatever, it was the only one we decided to do. It's I think that it's not even for someone with a like for a woman with a spinal cord injury, but through at all. It's just I think that in this case, as people with a spinal cord, we are more like a lot. There's a lot of like more guys there having their significant others going through the IVF, right? I think that that's something that is for women. It's really hard. It's not like a disability, not whatever. It's just the situation itself.
Yeah, for in vitro, I had a couple on here back in February, and they spoke about their experience as well. And it's not the easiest. For one, it doesn't always take, or some people have to do multiple opportunities, and it's expensive. So I guess having the injury or not IVF itself is just a difficult.
Yeah, it doesn't have to. I don't think that it has anything to do with disability. It's just the process that like you have to be like you have. I mean, you have to want it. Like we're extremely lucky because I had one embryo, as I'm telling you. One time I did, and we had her personally. As I don't know if I would have the strength to do it again because it's nerve-wracking, but it's amazing that gives us also the opportunity, to go on with it and have the babies that we, wish us so much.
Now, I've had Alex and Alfredo on there, and they both had the triplets. How do you think you would have received that one?
No, Alfredo has the double. I mean, the twins.
His was twins, okay, so he had twins, and Alex had the triplets. So you couldn't see. How would you have responded to that one?
I have no idea. I cannot even tell. Look, let's just say one thing. Nowadays, I say that Manuela exists because she was not the first. Okay? If Manuela would have been the first, Mateo would not exist.
Yeah.
Okay? So, it's something that, like, two Manuelas in anyone's life. Oh my God. I don't know what to tell you.
That is amazing. That's great. So now, we're going to have to cut off in a few minutes, but what advice would you give to a young couple who one of them has a spinal cord injury, or the mothers out there who either had or thinking of having kids post-injury?
Do it. Don't let anything set you back. I mean, if there's love, if there's, not even the love, between, like people, because that might, like just fall apart at any time, as it just happens in life. But if you have, if it's in you that you want to be a parent, I mean, nothing should stop you. That's all I have to say, because I mean, just like whatever they do afterwards, growing up, like the joy of life becomes something else. Like, I mean, your needs are, will change. You see life in a different way. So I think the parenthood, it's something that some people don't really want it at all, and fine. But for those that do, then, like, I mean, go for it. I there's nothing I regret.
I'm glad to hear that, whether it's been easy or not, whether there's complications or not, whether there's doctors who know the most or not, you're just happy, and I guess happy is the best way to say that you went through it.
Life will work its own, I mean, on its own. Somehow, whatever has to happen will happen.
Tati, there's so much more I wanted us to talk about, but my time is cutting out on me, and we're gonna have to go. That just means you're gonna have to be available another time. We didn't talk about work. We didn't talk about too much about the careers support group itself, but I do appreciate you. I know Mother's Day is coming up, so again, shout out to you for being a time amazing mom, and to all the moms who are listening, all the prospective moms, and just the mother figures out there. We do thank you, and shout out to the moms who have kids who've had spinal cord injuries. I know that can't be easy. I've seen many out here in therapy supporting their kids, whether they're grown or young. So shout out to all of you guys for just being amazing. You shouldn't get your flowers only on Mother's Day. You deserve your flowers all the time. So thanks so much.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Appreciate you. We'll definitely do this another time, but you enjoy the rest of your day.
Okay.
All right.
Thanks for tuning in to the show. Connect with the podcast on social media. Check out our Instagram page at ramp.it.up.podcast or email us at rampituppodcast@gmail.com. Until next time.